Hey everybody, and welcome to episode number 41 of the third season of the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal. Roto Street Journal, of course, the only site that's going to pave your way to fantasy football glory. And the Fantasy Football Fullback Dive, of course, is going to be your lead blocker as we take you to the promised land. I, of course, am your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself, in a house right now with kind of a window, the shades like pulled up a little bit. It looks like perfect for like someone to break in. Like it looks like you're just asking for it, basically. If we see a prowler behind you at some point during the podcast, I'd put it at like 30% probably.
Absolutely, and this is the busiest time of the year in Salem. I think it's like the most people per capita or something of that nature during October.
No doubt.
Ready to get broken in for sure. This is the basement, so if they can come through these windows,
they can get to you.
They can still get here, yeah, absolutely. There's definitely seen some like murderous Teletubbies out there today. Just some interesting costumes, nonetheless. You can't walk down the street without getting harassed by a witch these days.
No. Hey, have you ever dated a witch? I know there was that one girl that said she was going to pee on your stuff, which is pretty close.
She was damn close, but no witches actually. All the ghouls and goblins that I've made, no witches though, thankfully.
Dating a witch seem like kind of exciting, sexy, or just like a lot more trouble than it's worth?
Oh man, definitely the initial lure to it would be.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of the fantasy player. It would be like it's got some nice Derrick Henry-esque type of vibes and appeal, but then you just get to it and it's just way more trouble than it's worth. Absolutely. So that's what I would compare dating a witch to, is Derrick Henry.
That's kind of how I felt when you were telling me about that alpha wolf woman, the one that threatened to pee on all your stuff. The first time you told me about her, I was like, oh, I'm kind of into this lady. And then that was before the pee.
Oh, okay.
When she was just like really aggressive, and then once you read me that, I was like, still kind of exciting, but yeah, you know what? I would regret that.
Right.
And anyway, so good job holding off on that one. We're a quarter way through the season. Week 5 is in the books. We've had a few surprises. We've had a few things that are going exactly as the Roto Street Journal predicted that they would early in the season. We've had a couple home runs. You'd have to say Pat Mahomes is an absolute unmitigated home run. And we've had a couple, not really whiffs. We love Deshaun Watson. He's coming around, actually. I actually feel pretty good about him. I got a question before we get started. We look at the Rams wide receivers. We talked about them on Monday.
That's a whiff right there for us, by the way.
A little bit.
I was way too low on all them.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we didn't know if there was going to be enough to go around. And Goff, too, maybe a little bit at the beginning of the season. But we look at Robert Woods. We look at Brandon Cooks, and we look at Cooper Kupp, and we say, well, all three of those guys are top 15, top 20 receivers. My question to you is this. They're a little bit behind, but do you see a possibility that Deshaun Watson's receivers, the Houston Texans guys, could also, start bubbling up like that? DeAndre Hopkins, probably better than anybody on the Rams, but then you've also got Fuller, and you've got Kiki Cutie, not to be confused with Kiki Cote. Are these guys possibly all going to be starters as well? Is there enough to go around in that horribly run Texans offense?
I think absolutely. When you got a guy like Deshaun Watson absolutely balling the way he is, what he threw 375 this week. It's one of those things where the aerial pies, there's so many teams around the leagues that the aerial pies can be big enough. I mean, Watson, 375, 385, 310. His last games, I just looked that up. Outside of that Patriots dud, he's been back to that beastly self that we expected. So when you have that much yardage, that much aerial pie to go around, it can absolutely sustain 3 wide receivers, especially when it's very densely packed aerial pie too. There's not many other weapons. There's no tight end in sight. Similar to the Rams situation, there's no tight end there eating anybody's cheese. So yeah, absolutely. And bringing up the Rams too. I mean, 2 guys banged up with Cooper Kupp and Brandon Cooks. Yep. We're going to talk about, there's no clarity as of Wednesday today as to whether they're practicing or whatnot. But Josh Reynolds still, it's one of those situations where Kiki Cutie just kind of stepped in and now is every week, I'd say, wide receiver 3. I mean, it's only been 2 games, granted, small sample size, but the way he's played, it gives you hope that he can be an every week wide receiver 3 or flex play. It's one of those things where Josh Reynolds would just step right into this explosive overall offense, this good quarterback that sustains all these values. If he becomes the number 3 guy, would be an immediate fantasy flex play as well. More about just the everything going around that aerial pie, creating that fantasy food for everyone. Absolutely, I think the Texans could be one of those guys. Yes.
Where do you have Robert Woods this week?
He's my wide receiver 13 right now, just behind Keenan Allen. And once I know more, if Cooks and Kupp are out, you got to imagine he'll fly up into the top 10 for sure.
All right, that's interesting. I know I got a little more into like the nitty gritty of some of the football stuff in the intro than I usually do, but I got a lot on my mind. I did go 4-0. I eked one out at the end. I was basically in a tie with a guy that had Drew Brees with about 5 minutes to go, and I had Mike Thomas and Ben Watson, and he completed a pass to each of them, and I knew that was it. But man, Brees made me sweat. I remember I told you, I was like, as long as he doesn't get 48, we'll be fine. And then he had, 38 by the start of the fourth quarter, something like that. Anyway, 4-1 in the Rose Street Journal League, 3-2 in all my other leagues. Feel pretty good about that after 5 weeks in. If you don't have a losing record on any team, you feel like you're okay, although 3-2 is certainly no breathing room at all. In my hometown league, 11 of the 12 teams in the league are 3-2 or 2-3.
Damn.
Yeah. So, and I happen to be one of the 3-2s. So, difference between second and 12th, one game. The pressure's on.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right in that pressure cooker. I'm 4-1 in the Roto Street as well. 5-0 in a league. 3-2 in a couple, and then obviously the Fez, as I've complained and bitched about. 1-4. Jamison Crowder didn't do it for me. Unfortunately, didn't get to where he needed to.
I know, every time he caught
Mason
a pass,
Crosby.
I was getting excited on your behalf. I was checking. I was is he at 20 yet? And he's at 4.
He got tackled at the 1 yard line. That's when I was like, "Yep, it's not going to happen this week." So, Mason Crosby ruining another week. Just every week I get damn close and can't finish the deal in the Fez. Snake bitten, but it's going to turn around, baby. Turn it around this week, finally.
Well, if you hadn't
got a battle of the roommates, actually, the battle of the condo mates.
Oh, nice. Well, that could ruin a lot of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you're 4-1 Roto Street Journal. Imagine if you hadn't gotten the unlucky draw of playing this guy. Imagine what you'd be.
5-0.
That's right? And your ass would be a lot less sore. Anyway, let's get into the stock watch right now. We got a good one. There's a lot of juicy rumor surrounding trades and Le'Veon coming back, all that good stuff. LeSean McCoy, Le'Veon Bell, O.J. Howard, TY Hilton, Leonard Fournette, Evan Engram, and Greg Olsen. That's kind of mouth-watering stuff. Let's start with LeSean McCoy and the trade rumors surrounding him. And obviously, a lot of that surrounds the Eagles, McCoy's former team, where he had a lot of fantastic years. And that, of course, is because of Jay Ajayi, who I'm assuming we'll probably talk about later in the burning question, something like that. But the fact is, I think he was an MCL or an ACL. Anyway, ACL, long story short, Ajayi's out for the year. Kind of happened suddenly. We didn't even really know it happened during the game. But anyway, they're looking for McCoy. I mean, it's not like the Bills need him. They're just as good with or without him. What do you think about this?
Right, and Sean McDermott, the head coach for the Bills, didn't even dismiss it, kind of said, we like McCoy, he's a good member, a valuable member of this team, and we're just going to leave it at that, but I don't want to get into the details. We get calls all the time. Incoming calls happen all the time. So he never said, no, we're keeping this guy. He's locked into our team. And it would make sense. This team is tanking. They're awful. And Shady's just rotting there. He's useless. Why not get a mid-round type of pick? They're saying it might take a 5th or 4th rounder to get Shady. And for the Eagles, it makes perfect sense to give that up when you're now looking at Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood at the top of your depth chart. Shady's clearly a superior option to all of them. And as fantasy owners, you got to be praying that this actually happens. Yes, his usage, you look at the fantasy stock formula, individual talent, usage, surrounding talent, coaching scheme, all that good stuff. His usage would be taking a hit because Doug Peterson is committee obsessed. We know that, but everything else would be getting a huge boost. The surrounding talent, he'd be playing behind one of the best offensive lines in the league as compared to the worst in the league right now in Buffalo. Obviously, the whole offense as a whole with Carson Wentz under center, everything else is far more explosive. Similar to kind of Jay Ajayi last year, kind of trapped in that situation. Not that he went and lit the world on fire when he went to Philadelphia, but he was much more useful, much more likely to get you 10-ish or so points when he was with the Eagles, whereas he was just getting you week-killing duds every week with Miami. So if McCoy goes there, I think his value definitely takes a nice uptick. Where if he gets traded anywhere, really, Buffalo's got to be the worst place to be for any running back, for any fantasy player. Josh Allen has done nothing to inspire any type of hope. So, Philadelphia, great, connecting of the dots, seems like a great location. Anywhere really would be fantastic for Shady, though. So hoping that one happens. Even if the usage goes down, everything else would skyrocket in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I know you said Buffalo is the worst place for a running back to be, but Arizona doesn't seem much better, I got to say.
David Johnson's doing all he can with a couple touchdowns to save his value, but, man, that's a tough situation.
That's a bad look. All right, let's talk Le'Veon Bell. And there's some trade rumors surrounding him too, but also just him coming back and potentially finding himself in a committee with James Conner. Roethlisberger saying James Conner shouldn't go on the shelf by any means if and when Bell ends his holdout. And while I agree with that in principle, because Conner has looked pretty good, I'd be willing to sit Connor on the bench if I were the Steelers and have him as a nice insurance policy. What do you think about that, first of all? And second of all, have you heard anything about any, trade rumors surrounding him? I mean, I'd heard some trade rumors about maybe him going to the Eagles.
Right. There's definitely some dots being connected to him going to the Eagles, whatnot, but the price is just much heftier when it comes to Le'Veon Bell. He comes with a humongous contract, obviously, with that franchise tag, and you're surrendering much more than, let's say, a LeSean McCoy on the back end of his career. You'd be having to pretty much say Le'Veon Bell's our franchise back for the next 4 or 5 years, be signing this guy to a huge deal. Otherwise, he's probably not playing for you either. So I doubt he gets traded. I don't think anyone's going to shell out that type of price for just a 1 week rental. One season, half season rental with Le'Veon Bell, especially the Eagles when they're sitting at 2-3. Sketchy, it's not like they're 4-5-0 and just need that one last piece. They're right in the middle of things. So who knows if I doubt he gets traded personally. But if he stays, do I believe this committee talk? I mean, Connor clearly has the support of his teammates. His line's been all about Connor. Big Ben, what Big Ben wants, Big Ben gets. A lot of reporters expressed this even before Big Ben came out and made these comments that there's going to be a committee. So, what would that committee look like? They're both very versatile guys. Connor is a more powerful runner, so if it comes a vulture situation, that'd be disgusting. But ultimately, I'm looking at this as the Steelers will probably look at Le'Veon Bell. We have this guy for 8 more weeks where he's not coming back. The relationship's too broken. Let's ride this guy to hell.
We're not going to get anything for him when he leaves.
Exactly. So that's what I'm kind of picturing is Le'Veon Bell being that true workhorse. He's just a head and shoulders above Connor. As well as Connor's fit in and played, it's been admirable. Le'Veon Bell is one of the top 2 to 3 weapons in the entire league. So versatile, brings a whole different game. Even if Connor's a good pass protector, good receiver, Le'Veon Bell's a fantastic. He's an elite receiver. You could line him out wide, and the way he runs his routes rivals any wideout in the league. Never mind a running back. So this guy's a beast. There's no way if you have both those guys, especially a fresh Le'Veon Bell, with a light, the end of the tunnel is near, you're going to get as much as you can. So I don't believe it. I don't buy the committee talk, and I'm still hoping this drives down his price. I'm still going to try to buy him. Maybe this makes it even easier to buy low on Le'Veon Bell right now.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say play him, and you got a great insurance policy for the season in Connor. Trainer's room, O.J. Howard with his knee is practicing on Wednesday. How significant is this?
I mean, it's pretty big. It's supposed to be a 2 to 4 week injury, and he's already back after missing only 1 week. He does have a brace on, so that's of note. If I had to be a betting man as of Wednesday, I don't think he's going to play. I think it's going to take a little bit longer to be fully back healthy. What this really matters for is who can you stream at tight end. If he plays, you play him because Atlanta, god-awful defense. It's going to be a points bonanza, the Bucs versus the Falcons. So I would play O.J. Howard if he's there. But if not, then Cameron Brate's, he's my top 7 tight end. And you know how much I hate Cameron Brate. But this week, if O.J. Howard's removed, Jameis Winston back into the lineup, the 3rd-rated quarterback in the league when targeting tight ends over the last 2 to 3 years while he's been the starter. So, he's loved his tight ends, always peppered them voluminously. So if it's O.J. Howard, if it's Cameron Brate, whichever guy it is, you got to start. My guess is it's going to be Brate this week, but obviously now you have to track that and see which tight end you're rolling out.
Florida Football Insiders report this is a quote, by the way, source having knowledge of the Jaguars' thinking. I wonder if we could fall into that category.
Yeah, what's
right.
The Prime Minister of London.
Let me see if I can I'm trying to tune in to a source that has knowledge of the Jaguars' thinking. All right, we're gonna have a great defense and roll out the worst quarterback in the country. How's that? Is that pretty close to the Jaguars' thinking?
Before we even get into Fournette, too, did you hear that the owner wants to move to London full time now?
We said that 2 years ago. We were the first people that broke that story. You know why? Because we have knowledge of the Jaguars' thinking.
That's us, baby. That's us.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, this source, which may or may not be one or both of us, having knowledge of the Jaguars, or maybe Alan Hearns. He has knowledge of that.
I don't know if he's ever left London. He certainly isn't in Dallas these days.
He's hiding behind that potted plant.
He's still hiding behind the potted plant.
He flew back one time to get 1 catch for 6 yards. He expects the team to sit Leonard Fournette due to his hamstring through week 9. Woo! That's a bad look. Only good news coming to this, of course, is that Jamal Charles is back on the scene. So talk to me about this.
Yeah, what is that? I'm intrigued to see what
I'm
John
intrigued.
does.
I didn't pick him up on waivers. It's not like I wasn't thinking about it.
Right, I've certainly considered it. If you have complete trash, it's might as well stash the guy, see what happens. But the other reports coming out, too, is Yeldon will remain the guy. So hopefully, if you had Fournette, you hinked him up to Yeldon, because Yeldon's been just as good as what you probably were going to get from Fournette anyways. He's had 14, 16, 20 over his last 3 weeks. I mean, the guy's been everything you would have wanted. Even if I don't think he's the talent of Fournette, the volume's been there, especially in the receiving game, which is what we expected out of Fournette. So, honestly, if I'm an owner and I have Yeldon, I would be pretty happy about this. I don't want Fournette rushed back. This gives him a very long time. You've got to imagine by the end of the bye, he's back to full health. What's the point at this point to put him out there 1 or 2 weeks before a bye week? Let him get all those 5 weeks. Let him get fully healthy. And then by week 10, you're looking at a huge surge to your fantasy lineup. The Jaguars obviously getting this guy. I imagine if he's back to full health, they've already ridden Yeldon to a complete he might be ridden to the ground by that point. So I bet you it comes to the Fournette show when he's back. He's a guy, again, if you're in that 5-0, 4-1 spot, and you can buy low, just like I've been trying to do with Le'Veon Bell. You got to know now the light at the end of the tunnel is at week 10. So can you stomach those weeks? Do you have the depth at running back? Do you have Yeldon and the Fournette owner doesn't? He would be an interesting buy low because I do think weeks 10 through 16, the guy could be a monster. I got offered in one league like a Naeem Hines for Leonard Fournette, and I'm in good shape. So yeah, absolutely, I'll give up Hines to get that last 6 weeks of Leonard Fournette. Of course I will.
Of course, of course you will. Somebody, absolutely. What are they doing? Who are you playing with?
I have no idea. Just morons, I guess. So I took that one. Hands out. It's a PPR league, so I guess I get it. The guy's desperate. He's 1-4. Doesn't have Yeldon, dying at the sword of Fournette right now. So I'll take it. I'm in 3-2 even. I'm not even in great shape, but I'll buy low. So to me, it's obviously annoying as an owner, but long term, I would feel better that they're resting him through the week 9 bye. You get that long to fully heal up. And if he flares up after week 10, resting all this time, then fuck him. He's awful. But I think you're going to get those last 6 weeks, just a monstrous performance from Leonard Fournette. And again, good buy low if you have the ability to do so right now.
All right, Evan Engram, due to his knee, is out for week 6 against the Eagles, which I have him in one of my starting lineups, so that reminds me I need to go fix that. But I'm hearing he's probably going to be back against the Falcons the following week.
And that's obviously a great matchup to target. And that's kind of the point of this blurb, is to remind people, hey, if you have Engram in your lineup, make sure he's out. I had him in a couple too. And you got to look, maybe Cameron Brate, who we just talked about, that money rapport with Jameis Winston. If he's out there, great fill-in opportunity. We'll also talk about other couple guys, but CJ Uzomah, only 26% owned right now, facing Pittsburgh, second most points to tight ends. And he logged 92% snaps last week. And then Croft went down. So, he should be looking at 100% of the snaps this week in a juicy matchup. So look at Uzomah, or even if you're truly desperate, Niles Paul, a Jaguars tight end that stepped in for Austin Seferian-Jenkins since he hit the IR, came off a 9-target, 7-catch, 65-yard day. For the truly desperate, he's only 2% owned. He could actually make some real plays, a converted wideout type of tight end. You like that athleticism when they have that stuff. So a few names to look at if you're looking for an Evan Engram replacement plan for this week.
Greg Olsen, he of the glass foot, is practicing on Wednesday. What do you think?
I think you roll him out if you have him. Unless it's behind a guy like Jared Cook or Jordan Reed. If you can wait and see what Olsen does, great. Because you mentioned the glass foot. It could just flare up, and then he's done for the rest of the season. That's a huge risk. He's already said he's probably going to have surgery when this is all said and done, so he's not at full health by any means. But Norv Turner has always loved his tight ends. Cam Newton needs that reliable middle-of-the-field target. Funchess has filled in decently in that role, but hasn't inspired the full confidence that Greg Olsen would just disappear by any means. So at such an injury ravaged position, I'd love to stash him and use him later on if he pans out, but ultimately you might not even have that option, and you could roll him out in week 13. He's my tight end 13 going into the week.
Second or third worst coach in the NFL, Frank Reich, announced that TY Hilton and Jack Doyle both still week to week. Thoughts on that?
Well, it's Eric Ebron's show. He logged 15 targets last week when both those guys are out. He's had double-digit targets for 3 straight weeks when Doyle's out, 15 when Hilton was out too, and he absolutely feasted. You saw the 2 touchdowns, just dominated the Patriots. He was the engine of the passing game. And the other guy to check is Chester Rogers, has had 11 targets in back-to-back weeks. They're facing the Jets, who give up the 4th most points to wide receivers. He's matched up with Buster Screen out of the slot, which is just a very juicy matchup. So what this means to me is the most pass-heavy attack in the league, almost 80% pass-to-run ratio in favor of the pass. You can look at those weapons, even if they're not attractive names. Ebron at this point, sexy's tight end 4 in my rankings. But Chester Rogers, even Ryan Grant, are guys you could stream in the flex at a desperate situation. Particularly Rogers is of appeal to me.
Yeah, Chester, what the hell ever his name is, he's in one of our mailbag questions later that I think you sent in. So we're blowing some smoke
for myself.
That's right. All right, last but not least, or maybe last but least.
This popped up right
He of the committee, the dreaded 3-horse committee. The guy that you said, if you can get some name recognition from this guy, like trade him. Now him I might trade for Nyheim Hines, depending on what was going on. Running back Devontae Freeman, foot. They should just say committee next to him, not foot. Is battling a bone contusion, the source said. He didn't practice today due to the soreness, and his status for Sunday is clearly in doubt. He did do some work on the side, however, so his status in doubt, so you don't know if he's going to be inactive or if you can count on him for 8 carries for 33 yards. One of those things is going to happen, though.
One of those things will happen. I like the whole, he did do work on the side. What is he, mowing lawns?
I know,
on the
seriously,
side?
like accounting, what?
Right, exactly. What's this work on the side, and what does it matter to me? I mean, you got to hope that he just sits in terms of if you own Tevin Coleman or maybe even Ito Smith, because then it just becomes a two-headed show, and that's much, much more productive for fantasy. So ultimately, fantasy owners, the only positive that could come out of this is Freeman sits, and you get another juicy matchup for Tevin Coleman, would be a borderline RB1 against the Bucs in this points bonanza, as I keep calling it. But otherwise, if Freeman plays, he's banged up, and it's stuck in a committee, there's no way he could be in your lineup and you could trust him. Tevin Coleman maybe becomes a little more flexible because he might end up, Freeman flares up and he's out, or maybe they just ride Coleman because they know their other guy is a little bit more banged up. So this just bumps Coleman up a little bit. Freeman obviously takes a huge hit. You can't start him, can't trust him. He was actually, we do our higher, lower Hail Marys.
That's what's coming
before
next.
This news break, Freeman was already my lower. So now it's just, you can't even start this guy. He's borderline useless. It sucks. It sucks for your second rounder, but you got to put him on benches until further notice.
Yeah, I don't care what kind of work he's doing on the sidelines. He's benched. I don't care what kind of work that guy's doing. All right,
Seriously.
when we come back, we're going to talk about who we're higher on, who we're lower on, and who we're willing to take a shot at. Toss a Hail Mary to right after this. All right, quarterbacks. There's not a clear-cut guy that you're higher on. You're one or two higher on a couple guys. But we're going to go with Phillip Rivers, who the experts have as their QB11, who you have as your QB11, which is 4 higher than the experts. What the hell from both of you? How could he possibly be so low?
I know, QB11, I was like, all right, Phillip Rivers seems like a decent spot for him. And then I realized he's at QB15 from the experts, which is why he's going to be featured here. I don't get it. He's thrown for multiple TDs every single week this season. He has over 21 fantasy points in 4 out of 5 contests. It really doesn't get much more consistent than that. And the only one he was under was when the Rams defense was healthy and one of the scariest potential matchups you could have. So yeah, I get it. The ceiling's not enormous. It's not sexy rolling up Phillip Rivers, but with such a high floor, against Cleveland, yeah, I get the 6th lowest points to quarterbacks, but that's, I don't buy that in this sense because they just gave up 35 points to Derek Carr, threw for 400 yards on these guys. It's just more of a shootout potential when you got a guy like Baker Mayfield making this offense a little more explosive on the other side. So Phillip Rivers will do his damage. He'll have another multiple touchdown week. Maybe he hits 300 yards and another ho-hum 21-point day. That does not belong at quarterback 15, the type of floor like that. You need him towards your top 10 at least.
I'm going to list the quarterbacks for you that have more touchdowns than Phillip Rivers this year. Pat Mahomes.
It's probably not very many.
It's Pat Mahomes. That's it.
Is that it? Just Pat Mahomes?
Yeah, Phillip Rivers has 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So I don't want to hear any shit talked about Phillip Rivers. Guy's averaging 300 yards a game. I know we always talk about how he's not sexy, and it's true. He's not. He's got 8 freaking kids, and seems like. But that's pretty fucking sexy, is what I'm saying to you. I mean, 300 yards a game. PPR, his lowest game is 21 points, and other than that, he's been 26, 28, like 33, 35. I mean, this guy is money. 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Think about it. Mahomes, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Yeah, really not that far off. You're right. Huh?
No. All right, let's talk who you're lower on. Cam Newton, you got him as your 13.
That's a good. Just like now that you say that though, it'd be a good like little tweet like player A, player B, It's just like that. He's close to Pat Mahomes, who everybody is rightfully gargling as deep throat as they can, and he deserves it. I mean, he has the huge cock, but Phillip Rivers clearly one touchdown away, and the passing yards, I'm sure, isn't that far off either. So that's insane to me, how close they are and how disrespected Phillip Rivers gets. And he's probably even safer than Mahomes because he's been doing it for so long.
Phillip Rivers is Mr. Reliable. Look, Phillip Rivers, like, since you said player A, player B, you know how many more yards Mahomes has passed for than Phillip Rivers on the season? 18. 18 more yards on the season.
That's a good little tweet right there. Player A versus player B. That's crazy.
I mean, they have essentially identical passing stats.
Mahomes
does have 2 rushing touchdowns, but that's really the only difference. All right, here we go. Lower, Cam Newton, Washington. You got him as your QB 13 playing in Washington. That's 7 lower than the experts. I'm with you on this one. The experts have him as their QB 6, and they got Phillip Rivers as their QB 15. What the hell is going on?
I don't know, man. It's a fantasy just Armageddon out there right now. But Cam Newton, it's risky because last week I said Drew Brees should be lower because he's facing Washington, and clearly that wasn't right. Drew Brees, though, is an elite passer, and Cam Newton's not. His game's always dependent on the legs, and when you have an offense that can shut down the pass, that's even competent against it, Cam Newton often folds. He's got 2 games already out of 4 where he's under 200 yards passing, and I bet he goes under 200 yards passing yet again against this tough Washington D. So he'll get it done on the ground. He'll probably rush in for a score, but ultimately I'm looking at 180 yards passing, maybe an interception or 2, and maybe a touchdown. I don't like what's lining up for. He's also got 2 games under 20 fantasy points. I don't see how, like you just mentioned, Phillip Rivers is 9 spots below this guy when he hasn't gone under 20 other than one time. Cam Newton's already done it twice. Over half his game have been under 20 points, and this is looking like a matchup on the road, a tough team, a tough run defense again. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Cam Newton this week.
Hail Mary. Does Jameis Winston going against the Falcons even count? He's 43% owned, 10% started, and he is your QB6 this week. Man, I am not aligned with you on your QB rankings. I liked your Newton ranking. I didn't like your Rivers. I have a hard time seeing how this guy could be ranked above Rivers. Also, I know he's playing at Atlanta. I guess their defense is pretty terrible, but I just don't trust Jameis, and I do trust Rivers. Why do you trust Jameis so much?
I mean, ultimately, who do I trust more for like 20 points? It's definitely Rivers. I get it. But Jameis, to me, drips in that like 30-point, 35, 40-point type of day against this decimated Atlanta D. I mean, the weapons are insane. Deshaun Jackson is having a career renaissance right now. Mike Evans is back to the Mike Evans that we expected last year. And that, the tight end situation, Brate and him have always had great chemistry. Atlanta's a shootout style team with a horrendous defense. I think it's going to be back and forth all day. I think Matt Ryan, he's my number 3 quarterback. It goes Mahomes, Brady, and then Matt Ryan, and it's pretty clear cut to me. Just shootout game. I love all those guys involved. I think Winston has a big game back. I really like one thing that's kind of going on the radar is Dirk Cutter, their offensive coordinator. Smart guy, creative guy, loves to get vertical. Their head coach, but he's handed over the reins to Todd Monken, their offensive coordinator this year, and we've seen the way Fitzpatrick has taken just way more deep shots this year. Todd Monken just loves dialing up. He comes from Ole Miss, where they just would throw the deep ball relentlessly, and now that he has kind of the reins to this offense, we've seen it really light it up. Over 400 passing yards in 3 out of 4 weeks, and the only week it wasn't was when Fitzpatrick got benched. So, this offense has really been high-flying. I think Winston, I get that he isn't as good as targeting wide receivers, things like that. There's historic stats to that, but ultimately I think this offensive scheme has just been that much better this year, and they get the perfect, welcome back Winston matchup against this decimated, non-existent defense. I think Winston explodes in his return. Maybe.
And I agree that he has the weapons to do it. But, how many times has he had like a huge 35-point fantasy game even in his career? Not too damn many.
Not many.
So I don't know. I'm skeptical. I know he's a Hail Mary, so it's not like you're all in on him. But
right.
But QB6, I don't know. We should have some sort of bet on that because I'll bet you he's not.
Rivers versus that's a fair bet. Rivers versus Winston.
I'll take Rivers over Winston.
You get the floor there. Okay. The other guy I wanted to mention too, though, because Winston is pretty high owned, is Mitch Trubisky. Fresh off a 6 touchdown day, still only 26% owned, only 4% started. I get it. It's Mitch Trubisky. He's had 3 duds to 1 explosion. So where does this offense lay? Probably somewhere in the middle ground. I don't expect 6 touchdowns, especially with Miami only giving up the second fewest points to QBs. But I also think this offense really started to click. I think Matt Nagy's system is finally settling. It's very complex, but it's starting to finally get the fingerprints ready. It's just all over it, and it's back to get a bye to kind of scheme and get ready even more so. I like Mitch Trubisky. I could see him not 6 touchdowns, but maybe 3 to go with 250, 300 yards. For only 4% started, I'd say he's a pretty good Hail Mary for sure.
All right, fair enough. Let's go to running backs. A guy that you're higher on. You're saying you've got Dalvin Cook against the Cardinals. You got him as your RB11. That's 11 spots higher than the experts. You say that's way too easy. It's a similar situation to Joe Mixon last week. It's probably going to change if he's confirmed active. He's a deal on DraftKings, 5,700. But, you've never liked the easy way out. So let's go even more kind of off the chart. You got Tariq Cohen at Miami as your RB17, which is 17 spots higher than the experts. Defend that.
Yeah, what's not to love here? He's fresh off 26.9 explosion performance, 7 of 8 catches for 120 yards and a TD in that one. And he's facing a Miami defense. We just talked about how they're good against the pass in terms of limiting quarterbacks, but where they get destroyed is by pass-catching running backs. They have very slow linebackers in coverage. Their D-linemen over-pursue, so the screen game works incredibly well, and that's what Nagy's offense is all about. We saw that against Tampa Bay where Cohen exploded. The Dolphins have surrendered at least 5 receptions to a running back in 4 of their 5 weeks. And this offense, again, exploded 2 weeks ago when Cohen was the centerpiece out Howard and just giving you no reason to not move forward doing such a thing. So I love Cohen. He brings such explosive, versatile talent to the table. I think Howard will get back involved and be okay, but Cohen's not just going to disappear. 12 to 15 touches against this joke of a matchup. Again, we saw James White, Jalen Richard, Bilal Powell even have 15-point days against these guys. And you're telling me Tariq Cohen should be the running back 34 after this humongous? It's idiotic.
But not as stupid as the guy you're lower on, who we're about to talk about.
And that I don't know if this one counts anymore because of the injury. This was before the injury news, so that one might be too easy.
No, but we can still just. We already talked about him, so we don't have to talk about him for long. But you've got Devontae Freeman against the Bucks as your RB26. That's 10 spots lower than the experts. Just to be clear, they have this guy as their RB16, who is very clearly in a 3-man committee at running back.
Right. Absolutely.
And hasn't done anything this year. It's not like he had some big games and then got hurt and they're going to work him back. He hasn't done anything.
Right. Exactly. That's the logic there. 3-headed committee and still banged up. How could he be RB16? Now with this foot injury coming out and him probably not going to be playing, obviously you toss that one out. But anyways, how could the experts have had him at RB16 trapped in this horrible situation? I get the matchup. It's juicy against Tampa Bay. But come on. Ito Smith got the touchdown last week. What the fuck? There's no clarity. There's no clarity. There's no consistency. There's no way this guy should be RB16, especially not ahead of Tariq Cohen. The committee, he's trapped. You can't trust Tariq Cohen. This guy's in a 3-headed committee. Absolutely mind-boggling to me. So the other guy I went as a backup to lower was Ezekiel Elliott, who I'm only 3 or 4 spots lower on than the experts. But he's facing the Jags, which is always an elite defense. I think this passing game is going to get completely swallowed up. There's going to be no semblance. What receiver can actually get open against that defense? None. So they're going to make the Ezekiel Elliott beat. They're going to make Dak Prescott beat him and sell out to stop Zeke. And he's coming off a pretty dud performance, 11 fantasy points, so dud by his standards. The fact that he's caught 7 balls last week, it raises his floor a little bit, but I don't think you get your typical 20-point Zeke performance, hovering right again around 10 or so, in my opinion.
All right, Hail Mary. Ronald Jones. Remember, he was the guy I told you that in every draft I did, he was the guy that the computer had ranked high that was always around for a long time. And you said we should track that. Well, he was the main guy, although not the only guy. He was one of the most cut players of the week. You also have in we'll get to him in a minute. But why do you like Ronald Jones? Just because Peyton Barber's so terrible?
Peyton Barber is just awful. He's done nothing so far when the opportunities presented itself. And then you get Atlanta, which, again, we saw James Conner go for 30. Running backs have just destroyed them all year. And only 28% owned is Ronald Jones right now. He hasn't done anything on an NFL field. I get it. He's only averaged 3 yards a carry in his first game action. But he outsnapped and outtouched Barber, so it's kind of like a changing of the guard 2 weeks ago. They have the bye. You imagine maybe they kind of worked in the offense defense to have Ronald Jones more featured. So I expect him to have a decent day against this very burnable Atlanta secondary. If you want to go real deep Hail Mary, though, you can look at his pass-catching complement, Jacquizz Rodgers, 0% owned. I can see him racking up 5-6 cheap catches, maybe even finding the end zone on one of those catches if it's a full PPR league. Jacquizz could, if you're completely desperate, be an interesting Hail Mary toss out there. DraftKings, I bet you he's only like $3K.
Oh, he's whatever the cheapest thing is.
Whatever the cheapest would be. Because, again, Dan Quinn's defense for the last 3 years running since he came to Atlanta has always surrendered the most receptions to running backs. And I think that could be a sneaky blow-up spot for Jacquizz Rodgers at the bare minimum price.
My buddy Willie, as we're talking, just messaged me and said, I think it's about time they took Devontae Freeman out back and shot him.
Yeah, of Mice and Men style, just the dog.
All right, let's talk wide receivers.
Let Coleman get free.
And before, oh man, there's so many references I want to make there. Wide receiver, and by the way, I just added our week 6 Jameis against Phillip Rivers bet to the big board. We have one other standing bet this year. Do you remember what it is?
No, I don't. I actually forget this one. What was it?
PPR for the season. You took Odell Beckham. I took Mike Thomas.
Oh, Jesus.
And I remember you were so brash when you did it. You were so smug. Anyway.
That one's going well. We got to make some more bets then this year.
Not going too well for you. No, I beat you last year in most of the bets too. And I remember I beat you on a week 17 bet last year where I took Brock Osweiler and won.
Oh, God.
And they were both awful. They were like the 29th and 30 worst quarterbacks in the league. And I just picked the one.
Who did I even have in
You had Deshaun Kaiser. And I was like, no way am I going with that guy. I'm going for Brock. And I was right. I was right by like half a point. Anyway,
oh my goodness.
Wide receivers. Guy you're higher on, Mike Evans at Atlanta. Wide receiver, man, you love this Tampa Bay Atlanta matchup. He's your wide receiver 3, 6 spots above the experts.
And yeah, just as you mentioned that too, not that we're a DFS show by any means, but the clear-cut winning strategy of these millionaire lineups, and you look at them, they all have 4 or 5 players from the same game. Not necessarily the same team, but you target these over-under games. This one at 57.5. You look for the shootouts. You look for the Pats Chiefs. You look for the Falcons and Bucks. I actually saw a stat that it's a 57.5 over, and the Bucks have been over in 5 straight contests. Their defense is horrible, so they've let up a ton of points, and they've been pretty explosive on offense, scoring and playing catch-up. So all that, again, equates to a big blow-up situation for Winston and his main guy, Mike Evans, the second most points per game behind only Adam Thielen right now in fantasy football for wide receivers. So he's been a beast. He's back to his old form. I know, there's some questions about the chemistry between Winston and Evans, but just 2 years ago they had 12 touchdowns together. So, I mean, the guy can get it done, has got it done in the past with Winston. He should absolutely destroy Desmond Trufant, who's covered nobody on the season, never mind a guy like Mike Evans. So, I mean, this Falcons D, they've allowed a third down on 55% of the drive, so over half of third downs are getting converted. That's dead last in the NFL. And, Mike Evans is just a third down horse. So I imagine he's going to get peppered with targets, rack up 10 or so catches, maybe 2 of them going for touchdowns in addition to 100-plus yards. An absolute blow-up play on DraftKings at 8,100.
Josh Gordon against the Chiefs. You're cheating a little bit. You're doing more than one guy. But this is another guy you're high on. 24 for your wide receiver. That's 11 spots higher than the experts. I mean, Josh Gordon, KC defense, not much.
No, exactly. The reason I had to throw him in is because I get asked about him, relentlessly since that blow-up touchdown. People want to know my thoughts on Gordon, and I have great thoughts about the guy. After Tom Brady post-game says he's earned my trust, tells you the kind of confidence I have in a really short period. He made sure to emphasize really short period of time. I have this kind of confidence. That's huge when you enter Tom Brady's circle of trust. It takes many guys, Chad Ochocinco, Joey Galloway, never made it in, and Gordon's already there in 2 weeks. That type of throw, double coverage, heaving it up, and having him make that play, it only is foreshadowing the huge things to come. And I think more huge things could come against a non-existent Kansas City defense. I mean, Kansas City averaging 35 points a game, so they're going to put up theirs. The Patriots are going to have to keep up pace with them, and obviously you got Tom Brady. He's going to be able to keep pace, and their most explosive weapon, their best shot at the huge chunk plays to get up early is Josh Gordon. I get it, only 20 28% of the snaps, only 4 targets. So the usage, there are question marks. And I don't suddenly see him becoming an every down player, but his role will keep growing as this trust is forged. And they don't have the firepower to push it as far downfield as anybody better than that, than Josh Gordon, maybe even in the league, never mind on the Patriots team. So I think he gets deep at least for 1 score, if not a couple. He's also great at tackle breaking. Belichick has cited that his ability in the short game is just as good in the long game. I could see him having a much more high usage role in such a crucial shootout style game. I really like Gordon to blow up.
A guy you're lower on, a lot lower on actually than the experts. Allen Robinson at Miami, you got him as your wide receiver 32, 14 spots below the experts. And I'm just going to come out and say it. Wolf, I think you're too high on him.
Yeah, right? I don't get it.
32? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. He seems like a 40, 45 guy until further notice.
I don't get it. Well, you're dead right, because his finishes so far this year: wide receiver 41, wide receiver 29, wide receiver 43, wide receiver 41.
So those are his actual stats?
Those are his finishes in fantasy for the first 4 weeks that he's played. I don't get what is the fascination with this guy. Why is he at wide receiver 18? He has a big body. I mean, he's great. He has the prototypical X wide receiver frame. Great. Why would you
maybe
keep
the same moron that's putting Devontae Freeman as RB16 probably put this guy wherever he is.
Exactly. I don't get the appeal and all the hype around Allen Robinson. Taylor Gabriel's leading the team in catches, yards, and scores in every receiving category. Yeah, Robinson had a touchdown last week, but that's the only thing he did. And Miami's giving up the 7th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, particularly strong against their number 1 receivers. This just isn't a number 1 target hog style offense. And Robinson, clearly the numbers reflect that. He hasn't had anything going. 29 is his top 14 targets to be the wide receiver 29. He's not seeing that volume anymore. He's not producing like that anymore. Robinson's useless. It's just not nearly as appealing as his ranking suggests. I don't get it.
Sometimes, I know we always talk about the so-called experts, and it's like sometimes I'm like, why aren't we on the top of this pile?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I don't get it. I mean, I know the financial backing is a big part of it, but my gosh, what are these guys? Are these guys watching football even?
He hasn't topped double digits. He's only topped double digits once this year.
There's a guy on his team that's better than him.
Right.
We're actually going to talk about Hail Marys right now. Yeah, you got 3 Hail Marys, so blow through these quick because we're going long.
I gotcha.
Taylor Gabriel at Miami, you like 22 spots higher than the experts. Chester Rogers, the aforementioned Chester Rogers, playing at the Jets, you got him 28 spots higher than the experts. And Kiki Cutie against Buffalo, you got him 16 spots higher than the experts. I think every one of these guys is actually going to show up in a mailbag question later.
Absolutely. I love Taylor Gabriel. Like I mentioned, he's the real engine of this passing game, very dangerous in screens, which is the real way you can beat Miami. They're a very poor tackling team. And he's the leading receiver, no recognition, 7 targets every single week. The only thing that's ever been missing with Gabriel in his career is usage, and he's found it in Matt Nagy's screen-heavy, vertical, obsessed offense. He's the perfect fit for it, and he's going to absolutely blow up. I don't know how he's only the wide receiver 51, but Robinson's the wide receiver 18. Makes no sense. Chester Rogers, Jets, again, like we said, give up the 4th most points to receivers, matched up with Buster Screen, maybe the worst cornerback in the league. The Colts are the pass-heaviest team in the league at 80% almost. They had pass-run ratio, and he's only 8% owned and 2% started. Makes no sense to me with Hilton out, and this guy's seen 11 targets in 2 straight weeks and been good. He's got double-digit fantasy points in back-to-back weeks. Much rather have him in my lineup than Allen Robinson. And then Kiki Cutie, the Hail Mary play of last week, worked out pretty well. He got a touchdown and scored. I don't get why there's no love for this guy. Why is he down at wide receiver 49 in rankings? He scored a touchdown and 14 fantasy points last week, used in creative ways on shovel passes and whatnot, and sets an NFL record in his debut with 11 catches. He's very highly used. This offense is definitely clicking with Deshaun Watson now back into full health form, throwing for over 300 yards in 4 straight games, over 370 in 3 straight. What's not to love about Kiki Cutie in this very explosive attack? Love all 3 of those guys as Hail Marys.
All right, tight ends, higher. Eric Ebron against the Jets. You got him as your tight end 4. That's 4 spots higher than the experts. Seems to me like that should be right around where he is, actually. Who do you think's better than him? Ertz, Gronk, and Kelsey?
Exactly. After the big 3, I don't see how anyone else could be ranked above Eric Ebron. You could even make the case that he belongs above Gronk. He certainly ranks above him in fantasy points right now. Now, long term, I don't agree with that. I don't think so. But he's been dominant. He just put up 27 points against the worst, the fewest fantasy points to tight ends were the New England Patriots entering that game. He just hung 27 points on them, logging 15 targets with both Hilton and Doyle out. I don't get why it's not clear that this guy should be the tight end 4. How is he down at tight end 8? It doesn't make any sense to me. I get the Jets are a tougher matchup against tight ends where they let wide receivers blow up against them, but Ebron's their number 1 target. 5 touchdowns, lead the position. He's only been under double digits one single week this entire year. He's been the tight end steal off waiver wires and an absolute monster, and has to be a top 5 tight end every single week. Never mind a week where Jack Doyle's out too.
Lower, Jordan Reed against Carolina. You got him as your tight end 11. That's 4 spots lower than the experts. Do we have anyone on the staff that said that Jordan Reed was just a complete walk-in fucking joke and would never touch him in a million years? Do anybody on the Roto Street Journal staff that had the guts to stick his neck out and say that?
His dick and saying it was a long one too. I don't remember anybody hating against him.
I would never have done that ever. Not even like 4 years ago, before like the 12 concussions.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks like the injuries have caught up to him. He doesn't look like that freakish athlete that once was such a mismatched nightmare anymore. He has only 1 game above double digits, and that was in week 1. Hasn't topped it since then. He sees 5 or 6 targets a week, but Vernon Davis has been nearly equally involved, seeing just as many targets, almost as many at least. And Carolina, they give up the 10th most points in tight ends. They give up 286 yards, which is 26th in the league, passing yards a game. But Reed's just been very inconsistently used. Easy to take out, and just, he doesn't look like that same athlete again that once dominated the league. So I'm not high on him. I don't get how he's above guys like Burton and Yoku and Cook and Brait. There's just nothing to me that says Reed needs to be in lineups, like everyone seems to suggest.
All right, tight end Hail Mary, CJ Uzuma, not to be confused with the Salt Man, versus Pittsburgh, tight end 16, 2 spots higher than the experts. That's hardly a Hail Mary. Real Hail Mary, Niles Paul against Dallas, tight end 20, 19 spots higher than the experts. That's a real Hail Mary.
Right, exactly. We talked about both these guys when we mentioned the replacement plan for Evan Engram, but Uzuma, where I would turn first, the second most points to tight ends Pittsburgh surrendered. This guy was a 92% snap player last week. Now Croft's out, so he's going to be about a 100% snap player. I see him finding the end zone at least once against this horrendous Pittsburgh defense, especially against tight ends. But Niles Paul, converted wideout, freakish athlete, 9 targets, 7 catches, 65 yards in his first real extensive action. Now Austin Seferian-Jenkins confirmed out, so they're going to really scheme around Niles Paul a little bit more. I can see another consistent 10 points or so coming against Dallas that ranks right in the middle of the pack against tight ends. I like that Hail Mary if you're completely desperate.
All right, we'll be right back with Week 6's 3 burning questions right after this.
Yeah. We gon' help y'all see clear. Yeah.
All right, we are back. Burning questions. Jameis Winston, this is question number 1, will be making his first start after Ryan Fitzmagic had this pass attack feasting for 400-plus weekly yards in the air. What should we expect in his first week back? We've talked a little bit about this, but what do you think?
I think he comes back against Atlanta and explodes. This defense is horrendous. It's the perfect welcome back matchup. Winston has that deep arm, and Todd Monken's been calling far more vertical shots, which is why Fitzmagic was so magical, to use his name, over those first few weeks. I think Winston's going to step in and be just as much of a beast as he has been. Now, there is some concerning kind of historic passing trends. You look at his passer rating when targeting different positions. I found this one from our boy Scott Barrett at Pro Football Focus. Tight ends, he's unbelievable. 120.7 passer rating, 3rd out of 25 signal callers over that span. He's money with that. Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, those guys will be beastly. Running backs, not nearly as good, but not horrible. 95.8 passer rating, 19th of 25 qualifying QBs. Well, wide receivers takes a real big hit, 81.2 passer rating, which was dead last, 25th of 25 qualifiers. And it was, clearly divided even more. Slot receivers were okay, 90.3, likes that intermediate range. The 76.6 for outside wide receivers is where you got to be concerned. I know I said Mike Evans is my boy this week. I love him, and I still do. I think they fixed these woes, and the attack has just been that much better this year. But that is a little bit concerning for sure for Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans moving forward. The outside receivers haven't been great under Winston, but every position has destroyed Atlanta. So at least for this first week, you can roll him out confidently and stream him. I'd absolutely love to play Winston if I was quarterback needy. And I think he catches fire and just kind of lights that up for the rest of the year, too. With such a horrendous defense, they're going to always be in catch-up mode.
I'm going to need a week to see it, maybe even 2. Question number 2, Jay Ajay is done for the season. Darren Sproles is out for the game, which leaves Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood as the last 2 guys standing. That's a good way to look at it, too. Who do you prefer in fantasy, and are either or both of them startable?
Man, I've kind of wavered internally on both of these guys. And one second I'm feeling Smallwood. The next second I'm like, it's Corey Clement. And I'd say now that I'm on the spot, I'm switching my answer again. And I'm actually going to say Corey Clement. I don't even know my rankings reflect this quite yet. I'll have to update them. But I just feel better about the guy who had 6 touchdowns last year, proven red zone dependency, great wide receiving weapon out of the backfield too. He has kind of all that already established, whereas Smallwood's shown those flashes. I mean, 2 of his last 3 has gone for over 16 fantasy points, so the guy has had some beastly moments and has more of like a featured back feel, but I just like Corey Clement's more established role. I see both of them getting 12 to 15 touches, and in this explosive attack, I could see both finding the end zone. So yes, I think both are very startable. I've got a lot of questions, right around that Nyheim Hines kind of that tier is where I slide these guys into, and they've been obviously some of the most asked about guys because they're all widely available on the waiver wires. A lot of people injecting them into lineups. I think you can feel very confident doing so. I don't know if this will be out before Thursday Night Football by the time they play, but I could see both of them having decent games in Thursday Night Football. Does one ever emerge as a true featured back? Probably not. Peterson's never done that in his career. I don't think it's going to happen here with either of these 2 guys, but that gives both enough volume to both these guys to be usable flexes at minimum, maybe even RB2 options by the end of the season.
Last burning question. The 49ers have suffered utter decimation due to injury this year. That actually is an understatement, I would say. The most recent casualty, Matt Breida, who is unlikely to play on Monday night. This would move Alfred Morris to the top of the depth chart. Is he a viable fantasy option, or is the San Fran backfield just a hard stay away at this point? And then, as an aside, for that matter, is there anyone other than George Kittle you would even want on this team?
I would want Breida long term, but in terms of actually using this week, it's pretty much Kittle or bust, and he's been good. I still like Kittle, one of the only dependable tight ends this year. I believe it's 85 or more yards in, I think, 4 out of 5 contests. So, I mean, this guy's been getting it done. I like Kittle, but yeah, Goodwin, Garcon, none of those guys have developed any type of rapport with Beathard. And then Alfred Morris, what he's benefited from is Beathard's love to dump it off. Morris has never been a receiving back. So this is really, really game flow dependent. Morris could have a solid start, rumble for a touchdown early on. It's not like Green Bay has a great run defense. We saw AP destroy them. But I'm very nervous they get down big pretty early against Rodgers, who's rounding into form, fresh off a 460-yard day. I could see them just destroying the 49ers early on, the defense swallowing up this horrendous overall 49ers offense, and then suddenly Kyle Juszczyk becomes the main back. He's a good pass protector, a good receiver. He's fresh off a 6-reception day. Maybe you get Morris, very risky to me. I wouldn't want to start him unless I was absolutely desperate. He's right at running back 30 or so. I'm about 7 spots lower than the ECR and Alfred Morris this week. I'm just nervous he's going to get game flowed out, and Juszczyk actually becomes the guy that you wouldn't even want in your lineup, but is more so producing volume.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. All right, we'll be right back. We got a really crammed mailbag, and then we'll get out of here. We're going to dive right into the mailbag. It's a big one. Dan Heggs, standard scoring. What the hell are you doing, man?
JV shit.
Standard scoring.
Awful.
I feel like that's like that's like having a TV that you like have to go up and turn the dial on to like change.
Right, yeah, you're fixing the antennas.
What are you doing, man? Come on. Come on, Dan. What's your problem? Anyway, loser. Dan wants to know Wendell Smalldick or Tyler Boyd.
Anyone in a standard league shouldn't be calling anybody else for a small
I know,
dick,
seriously.
But as much as I just said small dick is usable this week, I actually like Tyler Boyd. The Steelers defense gets destroyed by every position. They're a horrendous defense against the pass. Tyler Boyd been very dependable outside of a bad last week. His kind of first dud in a while, though. Very dependable guy that Andy Dalton looks to in every third down. I love Tyler Boyd as their chain mover to catch 9-10 balls this week in a potential shootout game. Another shootout game right there. The Bengals and Steelers.
Maybe.
What games you got to target? The Atlanta and Bucks, the Pats and the Chiefs. You got some real points potentially being put up on the board this week.
All right, Jimbo Slice, friend of the podcast, Roto Street Journal mainstay, and perennial Roto Street Journal Expert League whipping boy. I believe is 0-5.
0-5. What a loser.
He's going to be getting himself a tattoo of Jamison Crowder if he's not careful. Anyway, he had like a tramp stamp. We should say the last place in RSJ League should have to get an RSJ tramp stamp.
Oh, that'd be great.
It's not a bad idea, right? Like just a cute little one, you know. So it's like even if you have to get it, you're like, all right, I'm RSJ for life. But like you look at it and you're like, yeah, and I'm kind of a wuss. Anyway,
it'll probably end up being some like random writer who never like talks to us again, but has like a little RSJ tramp stamp on the back of his.
I would love
fantastic.
that. I would love that.
Right?
I don't want it to be Jimmy. I want it to be some loser.
I kind of want to see Jimmy with a little tramp stamp.
Right.
I wouldn't hate.
Jimmy would be cute with an RSJ tramp stamp.
He
That's
would
true.
be.
All right, Jimbo Slice, full PPR, Kiki Cutie. Speaking of cuties, or Josh Gordon.
That's a tough one for me because Cutie's obviously the higher floor, especially with the full PPR setting. But I'm just like I said, I think Josh Gordon blows up. I'm a Gordon homer. I think he explodes, especially the matchup against the Chiefs with the firepower back to back, just juggernauts, bombs. You know what I'm saying? Josh Gordon gonna catch a big one. I'm going Josh Gordon.
All right,
here.
CJ is passing this on for Steven. This is a PPR league. Kittle or Engram, but I mean Ingram's out, so forget that.
Decision made for that.
Pick two. Other tight end. The other tight end, whoever you didn't pick, but that doesn't count because he's out.
Yeah.
So you're going to pick two between Smallwood, Kenyon Drake, Nelson Aguilar, or Kenny Stills. Not great. I mean, none of those are making me excited.
No, that's horrendous. I mean, you're locking in Kittle, and then I think Smallwood would be my favorite of those next three. And then I guess Drake off of a good receiving performance. Maybe he's usage. That's really the only question with Drake. I love the talent. So I guess I'm going to bet on the talent here. I'm not going with Stills. Fuck that guy. I actually cut him in every league I owned him. It's just a hate cut. I hate cut Stills. I'm done with him. And then Aguilar. Since Alshon's been back, Aguilar has disappeared into irrelevancy. So I'm going to go Smallwood and I'm going to go Drake with those two options.
And I want to just be clear. I don't like the options, but I agree with your picks.
Horrendous options.
This is from Blazo or Blazo. Half a point PPR. Kiki's showing up in a lot of these, or Carlos Hyde.
Oh, half PPR. I'm going to roll Hyde, just leading the league in rushing touchdowns. He's been so consistent. Nick Chubb only had 2 carries last week, so as much as they say they're going to work him in, he hasn't become a thing yet. It's the Carlos Hyde show. All
right, this is from me. Full PPR. I need to pick 2 of these guys.
No wonder you asked about Alfred Morris earlier.
Well, he's one of the guys. I picked him up off waivers.
Yes.
John Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, Amari Cooper, Kiki Cutie, Tariq Cohen, or Alfred Morris. I need 2 of them. Now, keep in mind, 4 of those guys are on my bench. Whoever I'm picking, those are decent guys, except Cooper,
Great
who's a
bench
dog.
Options. Yeah, right, exactly. I think you leave Cooper there. He's just too inconsistent. Even if he has his blow-up
This is his blow-up week, though.
It will be. It's every other week, so he's going to blow up, but you just got to keep it on the bench. You can't have it going. It comes down to, I mean, Sanders I lock in, and then it's, John Brown, Cohen, or Cutie.
Let me ask you a question. Would you start Tariq Cohen over Chris Carson at running back?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
especially in a full PPR league.
Then switch out Cohen and put Chris Carson in there.
Okay. Oh man, it's
just
tough
to make it not that much easier.
I think John Brown's in a huge blow up spot. I mean, he's got the most deep targets in the league. Tennessee, we talked about this on the pod week after week, is specializing in one thing. It's getting beat deep by wide receivers. I think John Brown's just in the ideal situation. You always ask me about John Brown. I always admit I have a bias because I own him too, and I'm praying for a blow up. But out of those options, it comes down to Sanders is the lock for me, and then QT or Brown are who I'm really considering.
Over Carson.
And for me, over Carson. Mike Davis stealing the touchdowns, and you never know when that offense will get down big and somebody just disappears. It's sketchy to me. As good as he's played, he's been over 100 yards for there's two less times on the field. He's been a beast. But who's your other running back? You got Cohen and
Sony Michel.
Yeah, you're playing Sony and Michel.
I've been patient. I went no running backs, remember, and I've been patient, and now I've got 3 guys that are decent.
I like it, man. Yeah, that team's panning out. To me, I go Sanders and Brown are the two I would go, but that's tough. That's a really fucking hard one.
That's who I have in right now, but that is tough. I mean, because there's a decent chance I'm going to have chosen wrong on somebody. I mean, there's a lot of other good guys that I'm leaving on my bench. Maybe I can flip. Maybe I can flip some of these guys.
Right?
Hopefully I can flip some of these guys into like a superstar or something.
Absolutely, that's what I'd be trying to do.
All right, this one is from the Wolf himself, half PPR flex. This is the aforementioned 4-1. By the way, my daughter just came by and held up a sign that said, "In that group, you should pick Emmanuel Sanders. Please put this on the podcast."
I love the support from the Jones family kids.
That's what the Wolf.
Awesome.
That's what she said. Just so you know, or that's what the Wolf said.
I agree. Serena's a smart one. A future wolf getting bred already.
She is a future wolf. She is.
Absolutely.
She knows what she's doing. She handles like my fantasy game cast on my computer as my games are going on.
So she knows what's going on.
Yeah,
she'll be our RSJ employee.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, next year she can write for us.
Absolutely.
All right, half PPR flex. This is from the Wolf. Shady, Chester Rogers, Robbie Anderson, and that is followed by LOLOLOL in caps. What the hell are you doing, man?
I know.
How are you 4-1?
I'm 1-4 in that one, dude.
I thought that was your RSJ team. I was like,
oh no, God no. That's my main league. And to me, I'm leaning Chester Rogers. How insane is that? This group. Really? But out of all those three options, I mean, Robbie Anderson
1-5.
Right, exactly. I know, seriously. But to me, Robbie Anderson, only 5 targets last week, blew up. To me, I paid up for him. I'm happy I own him, but I want to see another week of him and Darnold actually connecting. And if I see it 2 weeks in a row, then I'm ready to throw him in for the rest of the season. I'll believe in it, but I need to see 2 weeks in a row because he could be a complete zero. Whereas Rodgers, to me, he's going to have 5 or 6 catches at minimum, maybe even more. Like I said, Buster Skrine is horrendous. Who's going to be matched up with him? He's seen 11 targets in back-to-back weeks. I love that usage. It's the highest volume passing attack in the league right now, and he's the main focal point. To me, he's the highest, fresh off his best week, so that makes it a little bit tougher for me. But Shady's just so shitty. It's such a bad situation. Every time I bench him, he does okay, and then I put him back in, and he sucks. So I'm going Rodgers. I'm going with Rodgers.
All right, this is from @FumDucks. Josh Gordon, Kiki Cutie, or Josh Reynolds?
I'm going with Josh Gordon there. We had that question earlier, Gordon or Cutie.
All right. Yeah, but he just wanted to see
if no Cooks or Kupp, he's going to be up there, but I would still roll out Gordon.
Yeah. All right, Amari Cooper or Keelan Cole, half-point PPR.
I guess if you're going
that's tough. It is a Cooper.
It is. It's every other week plan, and I guess I'd go Cooper there. If you're going that low, you might as well try to get that 25-point Cooper.
I agree. He's got to
because Cole has just as much of a likelihood to go for only 10 yards too. So
yeah, and Cole has been a little bit of a disappointment. I feel like he's the wide receiver 40 or something so far. It's like he's had one big game. All right. Full PPR, pick 2 flex. Quincy Enunwa, he of the 0 catches last week. Alex Collins, he of the Ravens committee, who you said trade. Corey Clement or Corey Davis. This is from Justin.
I'm going to lean with Clement and Davis on that one. Full PPR. Davis has that target hog upside. I know he's been much more inconsistent, much more bust than boom. But I like him. I like Davis. I think he bounces back this week for a nice, 10-catch type of day. Clement, too. I like his touchdown upside on Thursday Night Football. And I like his role. 15 touches in this explosive offense could go a long way. I'm a big fan of Corey Clement. He's my favorite option of these. And it comes down to Davis or Collins for me. And I'm going to side with Davis.
All right. This is from Johnny Goodtimes, full PPR. Corey Clement or Nyheim Hines?
Oh, that's like literally neck and neck. I'm going to say Nyheim Hines with all the other weapons out there. He's been such a PPR monster. You can't bench this guy at this point.
All right, same guy, same scoring system. Taylor Gabriel, Keelan Cole.
I like Gabriel. We've already talked about him as my Hail Mary play of the week. I love the usage he's seeing in this offense that's rounding into form. I'm a big fan of Gabriel this week.
All right, this is from Ian Cairns. He says, leave one of these 4 guys out. Tariq Cohen, Buck Allen, Nyheim Hines, and Wendell Smallwood. Who's the odd man out?
I'm going to bench Buck. I'm going to bench Buck.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, okay. Cohen's my favorite of them. And then Hines, I'm very excited about Smallwood. Whereas Buck Allen just kind of like, meh. I would be benching Buck out of this. I like Smallwood, and then Hines has just been such well, it depends. Is it standard or PPR? He didn't specify. I'm assuming PPR, and I'm going to go Hines in that assumption. If standard, Buck Allen's the better touchdown bet, though.
All right, I often say last but not least, but this is last and definitely least. This is from my buddy Will Massey, and his team is decimated by injuries. I'll just tell you, Andy's got some buys going on, and I mean he's not happy at all. But anyway, DJ Moore, Lamar Miller, or Christian Kirk. This is PPR if it even matters.
Oh, God. I mean, Christian Kirk had that long touchdown, but I'm going to side Lamar Miller. Gets Buffalo.
I mean, yeah, he's at least got maybe a floor, right? I don't know.
Exactly. 15-ish touch floor against Buffalo, who surrenders run defense like candy. I like Lamar Miller. If there's ever a week to use him, it's this week. You can't trust DJ Moore. The usage just isn't there yet. He'll have a blow-up week one of these weeks and suddenly become usable, and maybe it is this week, but I'm not going to test it out until I see it. So I'll go Lamar Miller here.
All right. You got any social media you want to pump, Wolf? That was a great pod.
Absolutely. Thanks for the all the good info, my man. It's Fantasy Fullback Dive, of course. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, we'd love to give you these lead blocks week in and week out, review what you heard. We'd love to know the praise. If there's anything better to do, we'd obviously love to know that too. And you can always send it to me directly or hit me up with any questions. Roto Street Wolf on Twitter and Snapchat. Hit me up at either channel. I'm happy to answer your questions. Roto ST Journal on Twitter for our main page Twitter, and then Roto Street Journal on Facebook for the Sunday show at 11 a.m. Eastern time. If you haven't got your question answered, tune in. We've had great interaction all year. That show's really started to take off, which is fantastic. And Instagram as well, Roto Street Journal. Some incredible video work being done by our new guys, Matt Hopkins and Taylor. Obviously, it crushes it always. You got to check out our new Stock Watch videos. They've been fantastic. Check them all out. Follow us all. And best of luck in Week 6, guys.
All right, my name is Nat the Truth Jones.
I'm the Wolf. Pack, get the win, baby.
We used